So yesterday we got to this point, and I would encourage you to get back into that sketch. All right. So this here is like the outer wall, and this is the inner wall. Don't do this, but I'm going to just quickly revolve just to prove what this is going to look like. So that's kind of how that's going to turn out. Okay, we're good. We understand, I hope. All right. So I'm in this sketch, and what I want to do is I want to work on up here. So this is like the spokes of the wheel, basically. And you actually aren't really doing much at this stage. In fact, you're basically just creating a solid disc that you'll cut into or pattern later. So look at your spokes. Most of you, the top is probably flush. I think the purple wheels go in some, and I think the light blue wheels, they kind of curve out some. But the green, the orange, and the dark blue is just flat. You do whatever you want, but if it's flat, well, that's really easy. Straight line, easy, problem solved, right? If it's not flat, I mean, if, for example, this is, in, I mean, it's just a straight line, it's just going to be angled, right? If you want to do curves, remember, we have arcs. You could do a 3-point arc, okay? That's only going to be part of a circle, though. If you want some curvature that's maybe not symmetrical, remember we do have the spline. Okay? So, like, you could kind of, I'm exaggerating this, but you could do some crazy stuff like that, right? Okay? Probably less exaggerated, might be more like that, right? You could do that. Whatever, you think is appropriate. I'm going to just do a straight flat line. Okay? The bottom is a little different. So the bottom, it depends on your wheel. I think for most of them, it's mostly just straight and flat. But there is a little bit of rounding, I guess like you'd call it fillets or whatever. So I got a line I'm going to draw across. Ooh, that lagged. Okay, I got a line there. It seemed to be about 6 away. So how did I measure that? I'm using this thing. I thought this was the easiest. I kind of just stuck it in there and just saw how far it went until it kind of was flush with the bottom. So I got 6 might be a little too much. It might be less than that. Let's try that one again. Maybe only 5. Probably more like 5.5. Let's just go with 5. Okay. And if that's all you do, that's fine. I do see a little bit of rounding. So like, I could do a sketch fillet there. And there. Could do a sketch fillet. Okay. I don't know that it's really going to be perfect, but if you wanted to, I'm going to just for demonstration purposes. Going to make it, let's try 2. Yeah, I'll do 2. I guess I have to do them separate. Unfortunate. There's one. There's another. Notice when you do that, it breaks a lot of your stuffs. So if you don't want to do that, don't feel obligated to. But that would be kind of a way to get some of those curves. All right? So you got options. Let me give you a moment. once you got that figured out, you can finish your sketch and we can go do the revolve. Okay? So I'm going to do that. I'm going to keep this one simple. So I'm going to, now that I'm done with that sketch, I'm going to go to revolve. Okay? So the first box says faces and sketch regions revolve. So I'm going to click on all the things I want to revolve. And then those revolve axis is red. So I click on the red revolve axis. Now it's blue. Blue means anything I click is going to get fed into that selection area. And I'm going to click on this construction line here. And then revolve that profile around. I don't know if you guys are having internet issues. Or if it's just me.
Just slower.
Yeah. But that's it. That's the revolve. Now, a little aside, you don't have to do a full revolve. You can check this off. And it's really slow, but you can like tell it to go a certain number of degrees. Like you have options here. Okay. You have options, but we just want a full revolve. Okay. And I'm done. So this would just be the actual wheel. That's the wheel itself. That's like the main part of the wheel. And then you kind of look at it. It should be all blue if you connected the inner and outer wall. So like in this sketch, right, I connected the inner and outer wall. So everything should be one part. I shouldn't see multiple parts down here. If you see multiple parts, either you did not connect them, which could be by choice, okay, or you just sort of designed wrong. Questions? Right, we're gonna move forward. So we're gonna sketch on this top surface of the wheel. And our goal is to make spokes. So I'm going to show you a few different ways to make spokes, okay? And effectively what we're going to do is we're going to make like one. We're going to then use a circular pattern to pattern that cutout. So we're not creating the spoke. We're actually cutting out stuff in between two spokes, and then we're going to pattern it. You could do this a totally different way. You could create the inner and outer wall and not draw this connecting part in that profile sketch, and then you could create on this sketch the spokes and pattern the spokes. You got options here. I decided to start it with it connected because I thought that'd be easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a sketch now on the top. Okay? And I'm going to name this sketch, I'm going to name this spoke, singular, because I'm only making one. Technically, I'm actually making the gap between two spokes, but whatever. Okay. Before we start sketching anything, you are going to want to project these inner and outer rings, okay? You're going to want to project those because that's kind of where you're drawing in between, right? Like, I don't want to interfere with my walls. You know what I'm saying? I want to just interfere with this connective part in the middle. So I'm going to click on the Use Project / Convert button. It's next to the A and the Construction button. So you click on that, and then you can click on like that inner edge. Click on this like
outer edge. And then when you turn around and you look at the top, you should see those two black circles, and they correspond to the boundaries of the walls that are hidden because they're underneath. You have questions thus far? Okay. Did Jackson go home today?
I saw that lunch. Yeah, he got called on the office again today.
Okay. Because he was definitely here in the morning.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to draw a spoke. And by a spoke, what I actually am going to do is I'm going to draw like a void. That makes sense, right? Okay. How many of you have the green? The green's just like basic lines. Yeah. Okay. So the voids for the green would be triangles, right? Effectively, or something like that, right? Okay.
Looks like a pizza.
Not like fill it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to show you. I am not trying to dutifully replicate a specific wheel. I'm showing you techniques to create spoke-like things. We understand? Yes, say yeah? Okay. So what we could do here, again, I'm on the top sketch, all right? I am going to draw straight lines that go from the origin to the, there's this outer circle. So, yes, it's kind of like a pizza slice, right?
Mm.
Why am I drawing to the origin? First off, that means I know that they point to the origin, right? We get that? Okay. So that's a way to do this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do center point arc. The reason why I'm going to do center point arc is I already know where the center is. It's the center of the wheel. So I'm going to do center point arc. And I'm going to start at the center of the wheel. And then my second click is going to be right where that line intersects this inner wall. And then the third click is going to be on the other line. So notice I can now select this like pie slice or pizza slice region, right? I had to draw that arc to make the beginning of an enclosed shape. I'm going to do this again, all right? Center point circle. I'm going to do the center here. And then the second click is going to be up here where the line meets the outer circle. The third click is going to be like where this other line meets. I don't know. That got like backwards, or I don't know what happened there. Oh, maybe I clicked on circle. Not bad. Here, arc. There we go. Better. Click on that. Second click. Third click. And now you'll notice I can actually select. Do you see how I can highlight this region, right? You got to do those arcs to get the top and the bottom. If you don't do that, then unfortunately what will happen is you'll just have two lines, and like you could select the entire area, but it would like include this, and you may not want that. I want to be able to select just that. Now, if you do a quick horizontal constraint, all right, that lines up this vertex with this one right here, that will make this slice, this pizza slice, symmetrical about this y-axis, okay, which is handy, all right? Notice now, by doing that, these two parallel each other. Not parallel, but they mirror each other. We see that? They mirror each other. And so now, all you really would have to do is measure how far apart these are. And if you try to do that, because they're not parallel, it's not going to let you do a distance between these. It's going to do an angle. Now, how many spokes are there?
6.
So let's say there's 6. That means a spoke plus a gap has to be 1/6 of a circle. How many degrees is 1/6 of a circle?
60.
So if a spoke plus a gap is 60 degrees, if I make this 30 degrees, that means the spoke is 30 degrees, the gap is 30 degrees. Spoke is 30 degrees, gap is 30 degrees. Sound good? Guess say yeah? Put whatever number you want. I'm going to go 30 for right now. Okay, you can always change it. This is really just a practice to show you some things that you can do. All right. So I'm done with this sketch. Now I'm going to extrude. And I'm going to hover over this weird part of a pizza slice or pie slice. And I do need to remove. Yes, yes, yeah, yeah. And you can change this to whatever. You could do up to next, or you could do all through all. But you see how it cuts through? Yes, yeah, yeah. And that is one spoke. Or at least it's the gap between two spokes. I could even call it the spoke gap instead of spoke. That might maybe make it a little bit less confusing or ambiguous. Now what am I going to do? Got my spoke gap made. Now what would I do?
Pattern.
It's just a circular pattern. So we have mirror and pattern kind of close by. Here's the pattern button. You got to click the drop down to choose circular pattern. Okay. What is the first thing you need to do in order to use the pattern?
Change it.
It defaults to part pattern. You're not patterning this entire part. You're patterning a feature. So you got to click on this and change it to feature pattern. And then you can try and click on stuff, but honestly, if it's like a cut, what are you going to click on? Nothing? That's not going to work. So click on it over here. You can click on it over here, the table of contents. I can pattern the spoke gap. And then axis of pattern, I can click on that. And you can click on literally any circular edge. Like I could just click on the outer circle, doesn't matter. I could click on any of these inner ones, doesn't matter. Now, how many of these do we want? How many of these do we want?
6.
Let's say you want 6. Okay. Type in 6. If it's red and not previewing, remember the pro tip here. If you're having issues, select reapply features. And there it is. It's beautiful. This is what I'm going to refer to as the poor man's way to make spokes. Now, those of you who have the green wheel, that is wrong. And I'm not just talking about the dimensions. There's something fundamentally wrong with that. That's not a dimension issue. And this is actually true for the blue, like the dark blue. Well, maybe, yeah. True for the orange, the purple. This is something that would be true for all of them that this failed to account for.
It's hard to stick in the middle and mid center.
Ah, it's thicker out here than it is here, right? Now, if that's what you want, well, here, great, awesome. But that's definitely not what those spokes look like, right? And that may not be what you want. Okay? So, I'm going to call this spoke 1. And I'm going to call this spoke 2. Or spoke 1, sorry. And I'm going to call this spoke 1. So the icon tells you what it is. We got a sketch versus a feature versus a pattern. This is a really cool thing. You can right-click on something. Like I'm going to right-click on the pattern. And I'm going to choose suppress. Right-click on the extrude, suppress. I'm going to go to the sketch, and I'm going to hide it. So if I ever want to bring that back, it's literally 3 mouse clicks away, right? Yeah. But if I don't want to bring it back, I want to try some other stuff about having to redo all my work, I can just leave it and I can move on. We're going to do it another spoke. Sketch. I'm going to click on the top. We're going to do a completely different spoke design. I'm going to still use the projector convert to get this outer ring and this inner ring. We're going to now try and make the spoke same way, but instead of having it get thinner and thinner as we get closer to the center, I'm going to make the lines parallel. So how do you do this? Well, you draw a line, okay? Like this, and another one like this. They went from the center out to the outer circle, yeah? But these aren't going to be the edge of the parts that cut out. These actually are the centers of the spokes. Make sense? Yeah. Okay. Now, if I have 6 spokes, how many degrees are going to be between 2 adjacent spokes if there's 6 of them? We just did this math. 60. So I can dimension that. 60. Right there. Easy. 60. I can then do a horizontal constraint to line this vertex up with this vertex, just so it's symmetrical. Sound good? Yes, say yeah? Be very clear. I just drew the centers of the spokes. I didn't actually draw the edges of the spokes. Now I'm going to draw the edges, and watch what I do here. I'm going to click on this circle, but see how see that parallel auto constraint? This is parallel to that center line that I drew. We see that? And I'm going to do the same thing over here. This is, notice okay, I don't know why there it is. There's the parallel. We see that? That parallel auto constraint. Now, before I do anything else, just to prove this point, notice that this does not go through the center of the circle. We see that? Because going to the center is what causes it to get narrower. This would not continue through the center of the circle. Okay? This line right here, I can make a construction line. And this line right here, I can make a construction line. They're not actually the edges of any physical object. They just run through the centers of 2 adjacent spokes. We see this? So making a construction line, I think, helps. Now, there's some things we can do with these 2 blue lines. Okay? I could dimension, for example, how far this is. Yeah? Now, this is a little weird because it's not actually like a circle, but just go with it. Remember, if I move my cursor over here, it's like double the distance, right? Well, if that's the center of the spoke, then this would be the width of the spoke if I make it that double, go to the other side. And so how wide is my spoke? I don't know the answer to that. I don't have that car, but I'm going to say, let's just go with like 4. Okay? I just made that number up. I have no idea what it actually is.
I got 5.6.
You got 5.6. All right, I'm going to make it 5.5. I try to go to nearest millimeter. Sometimes I go to nearest half though for smaller things. Okay, 5.5. Now, how would I make this mirror that? There's different ways I could do it. One way is I could just make an equal constraint. I can make this equal to that. See that? Yeah? Problem solved. In the very specific case of the green car, it might be the case that this actually comes to a point right here. And if that's the case, you won't even dimension it at all. All you would do is just do a coincident constraint and make that vertex touch that vertex. See? Yeah? You got different options here. So I'm showing you some different options. And now, I got my pizza slice, don't I? Yeah? What am I missing though? You can't see it, but it's definitely missing. We had to do it the last time. If I don't draw this, I notice I can't select this region, right? I got to draw something to have this region be selectable. What do I need? I did it for the last one. Twice, in fact. I only got to do it once now since I made these come to a point. What do I need? Because this is not an enclosed region, right? I got an edge. I got another edge. What do I need to make this an enclosed region?
Oh,
The what?
wait 1 second. The arc?
Yeah, I need a center point arc. So I'll do the center point arc real quick. Center's here. I'm going to go from there to there. Now suddenly that's an enclosed region. And I can now go do all the stuff. I'm going to call it spoke 2. I can now do all the stuff that I did before. I can extrude that, remove. I'll go up to next. Okay. This would be, again, spoke 2. And I can circle pattern it. Entities of pattern. Click on spoke 2. Make sure this says feature pattern. Okay. Axis of pattern. I can click on any circular edge. I want 6 of them. I do need to reapply the features for whatever reason that makes you do that. And this is, again, spoke 2. Notice how those now, it's the exact same width the entire way, right?
Mm-hmm.
This looks very close to the green wheel.
Yeah.
Almost identical. We good? Yeah? Yeah? Any questions? Okay, I'm going to show you one more thing here. And then we're going to be done with spokes. So I'm going to, again, suppress, hide. Round 3, okay, I'm going to make a new sketch on the top of my wheel. I want to call this spoke 3. I'm going to use projector and convert. To project that inner and outer limit on where my spokes actually exist. This time, though, I'm going to do a curve. This is going to be similar to what you got with the light blue wheels. So I'm going to do a 3-point arc. Okay, 3-point arc. Point 1's over here. Point 2's over here. Why is it not letting me click? There's point 2. And then I kind of just got the center. You can see what I'm doing here. But there's different things I can do, but that's kind of how I get this arc. The center just kind of is whatever. You do want to have your center, see that snap too? If I click and drag and move it around, I can lock it in. You do want to have your center vertically aligned with the origin. Does that sound good? Yes, yeah? Do you want it to be on this circle? Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. That's a choice. I'm going to do it, but that may or may not be what you actually want. And now all I got to do is dimension this.
One thing that you could dimension is the distance between these two. That is something that'd be easy to measure. Maybe that's 14. I don't know. Okay. You might have to dimension, if you don't lock the center of this arc, so that center point right there, if you don't lock it on this circle, which you don't need to, if you don't think that's appropriate, you might have to dimension how far it is from the center, or something like that, or just ballpark it. But that's a way to get kind of a curve thing, and then you do the exact same game that we've already done. Okay? You do need to do the center point arc to get the curve for the top part, so that this is an enclosed region. Extrude, remove, up to next. That is spoke 3's extrusion. And then I want to do a circular pattern. I change this to feature pattern. I click on spoke 3, acts as a pattern, any one of these circular edges. And maybe I think there's only 5. Maybe there's not 6. Maybe this one just has 5, or 4, or whatever it is. And then reapply features if you're getting errors, reapply features. That's kind of cool, isn't it? You got nice curves, right? Mm-hmm. That may not be the exact curve you want. Maybe that curve needs to be different. Like maybe the center, and I said this, maybe the center of this arch does not actually lie on this circle. Okay? Maybe this dimension needs to be a different number. Or you do you, but that's the premise, that's the basic setup for getting kind of these curve. Serious lag today with the internet. That's about it. There's really only a couple more things that really you could do here that would be conducive to the actual wheel shapes. The actual like wheels that you're physically making measurements of. One, you gotta do your fillet. You gotta do your fillet. So you gotta fillet this edge, and you gotta fillet this edge. So I'm gonna go to fillet. I'm gonna click there. How big is that fillet? Well, I'm gonna give you a pro tip here. I would make the argument that that fillet is actually probably the full width of this. How wide is that line? Ooh, can we do math today? It's not directly dimensioned, but you have the dimensions you need to calculate it.
7.
It's not a bad guess, but what are those numbers 37, 30 actually dimensional? Because that gap is not 7. You're somewhere on the right track, but it's not 7. So this 30 and this 37, that's a gap of 7, right? But those are diameters.
Would be half of 7.
Yeah, it would be half of that, right? So 3.5. So, I'm going to just assume that the fillet is 3.5. When you fillet these, you can select each of these separately. Okay? And it will work. If you think that fillet is too big or too small, you can adjust it. It's very easy. You just go back into this fillet and you can type in a different number. Maybe I don't think it actually goes all the way to the edge. I think it's only 3. I can do that. Easy enough. You can fillet other parts of your
You can fill other parts of your spokes if that's relevant or necessary. You think it'll help make it look more like the way it does in reality, or maybe just like your hope is young, just make it look cooler. It'll just look cooler. Sound good?
Mhm.
Last thing, if you look very carefully, and now it does depend on what wheel you have. If you look carefully at the bottom of your wheel, your spokes might not be completely solid and the same depth or thickness the entire way. If I recall, like on the light blue and I think on the green, it's like kind of hollowed out some.
Yeah.
So you would just go look at the bottom and you can just do a shell. Look on the bottom and you can put whatever number, makes sense. This may not work out super well. Okay. Shells do not always work out. I've had tons of issues with shells. So if you're not getting it to work out, don't hate yourself. Don't think you're dumb. Don't think you did it wrong. Shell is not a reliable feature. I'll say that right now. It's just not.
Could you draw could you draw a rectangle in there and then just reverse extrude until up to the point of the spoke?
You can, but like on this one, I mean, those spokes aren't the same size the whole way down. You'd have to redraw. You have to do a manual shell, right? Do a redraw of all the edges and contours, and then extrude a specific depth. And I'm not gonna lie, probably not worth it. The whole point is for you to know how to do the shell and the other sketch techniques that I showed. All right, that's it with the wheel. I'm gonna stop the stream.